Oh shit. Hey everyone, I'm back, and I am not having a good day. I'm having one of those really, really bad days where I just look back on my life and I'm like, damn, so that was me, huh? That's how I got treated, huh? You know. And whenever I get into these moods, I'm always asking the same question. Why did it have to be that way? But it's a dumb question. It's a dumb question. And I always end up feeling guilty because, my life right now is fine. I'm okay. Psychologically, I'm not okay. But that's just something that I need to get over. I need to get over all of this bullshit. I just gotta get over it. I just need to learn to let it go. And it's so stupid because all this stuff that I'm so angry about, it happened over a decade ago. Over a decade ago. Well, let me tell you about little Ray. Just be warned, it's not a pretty picture. There's nothing that I'm gonna say that's gonna make, anybody like, But, yeah, I'm just gonna paint you a picture. So, 4th grade is when things really started going downhill for me, psychologically. I came to a new school. It was an art school. I don't know why that's important for some reason, but, all the time that I spent at an art school, whether it was for elementary or for middle, or technically high, it was technically a split between, it was so weird. It was like the elementary part went from 4th grade to 7th grade. And then the high school, the arts high school was 8th grade to 12th grade. So there was no middle school, which was fucking, I mean, middle school itself is a weird concept, and it's just like, yeah, you have a whole school for like 2 grades. I mean, I guess that's stupid, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm not talking about what I need to be talking about anymore. The point is, for whatever reason, the time that I spent in art school was psychological torment. Seriously. So, picture me. An empath. I was raised by a narcissist. Coming to a new school filled with new people who have basically, been together since 1st grade, I have to assume, because most of them knew each other quite well. Here I am, like brand new, don't know how to socialize really. And there's this second element to it where, because I was raised by a narcissist, I basically didn't have a sense of self. I didn't feel feelings, or, it's so weird to say. Because I really didn't. I didn't have my own feelings. I didn't have my own thing going on. It was just me constantly internalizing everyone else's feelings all the time. And me, getting their feelings mixed up with my feelings and then not knowing what the fuck to do with any of it. So I just didn't do anything. And it was like I was in a fog. I never knew what the fuck was going on because I couldn't differentiate myself from the outside world. It was like, yeah, what the hell is going on? I don't fucking know. And there was no one around who was on my side. It was like everyone that was against me constantly. You know? It was just that, you know, like, it's like, you know how some people can develop a certain sense of self through narcissism, through like the opinions of others. I couldn't even do that because it was like whenever I would get compliments about the things that I could do well, there was always this undercurrent of, okay, they're definitely jealous of me. There's definitely something, there's anger. I can feel the anger. I can feel something underneath the admiration that is just not quite sitting well with me. And so it's like when like you don't, when someone gives you a compliment, when anyone gave me a compliment, it wasn't like I was gaining, a sense of pride because, oh yeah, I've got this thing. I was just internalizing all of the bad feelings that were coming along with the compliment. And so in that way, it felt like I knew too much about everyone. I knew too much about what other people were feeling about me, and that, like, because I understood how they were initially feeling, I based all of what could be based upon that first feeling. Like if I'm feeling anger or jealousy or just like sometimes it was just straight up like rancor or like spiteful. Just like a lot of these people just had like a genuine spiteful nature to them, where it was like it was like they didn't have empathy, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I hate to say it like that because like I don't want to frame it that way. I don't want to believe that many people did not have any empathy for me in any capacity. But it felt, that's what it felt like. It felt like everyone was out to get me. And it was like even the people who called themselves my friends, they didn't acknowledge the things that were happening to me. You know? They didn't care. They never stuck up for me. They just watched and laughed. But then they would hang out with me afterwards. Yeah. And it was like, that was my existence for a long time. Being ignored until they needed someone to insult. And then, I was the center of attention. Yeah. It was seriously like a fog. I just, you know what I mean? And I hope there's someone out there who can identify what the fuck with what the hell I'm saying, because I'm not saying that if someone doesn't, that makes me crazy. Like, of course not. Like, I definitely went through what I went through. I experienced those things. But it's just so weird to think about because I don't ever hear anyone saying the things that I'm saying right now. Like, no one, I've heard one person on YouTube experience these things. This guy named Daniel, who used to be a therapist. Like, especially when he said, there was this one time when he was like, yeah, I grew up just internalizing the feelings of everyone around me and not having my own feelings and not having a sense of self. Yeah. That. But he's the only person that I've ever heard say anything akin to my experience. And that's just so concerning to me because it's like, what the fuck? Like, why am I so, like, you know what I mean? Like, why are all of us so psychologically alone? Like, it's like we go through these things and like no one understands us, but there's always someone out there who really understands you. But because we're all so far apart, we feel like no one understands, but there are people out there that understand. Like, we're spread out from each other. That's what it is. And so our experiences never get validated until we seek and eventually find someone who can, validate those shared experiences. It's just sad to think about. I mean, damn, when you're an empath and you get raised by a narcissist, like that I don't know, like it's weird to think about because it's like you may have already been an empath from the beginning, but there's also this extra element of you probably leaned more into that because your parent was a narcissist, because you felt like you had to like know what they wanted before they knew, so that you could cater to them more easily, so that they would get the fuck off your back, you know? And like there was also this other element of because like I'm an INFJ. Everyone knows that whenever you repress your last function, no matter what type you are, you're basically crazy, or like not crazy, but cut off in a weird way. You're gonna be cut off from the real world, and that's what I mean when I say like that fog. It's like you were experiencing the things, right? You were still there, experiencing exactly what happened, but you couldn't respond because like there was no sense of self, right? And everything, it just felt like everything was just flowing through you or me. It was like things were kind of just happening and I could never respond. And you know what? I remember one time I actually did respond. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but there was this one particular time when this guy was making fun of me for being dark skinned in class, and I just exploded on him like randomly, just randomly. Like, not randomly. I mean, it was a long time coming. I mean, he had been making fun of me for years, but when I exploded on him, there was this shock in him, like a genuine shock, like he was shaken to his core almost. And I got a little bit of satisfaction out of that, but then immediately I was punished by the teacher, not him. Stuff like that happened often. Not the me exploding thing. I think that was the only time I ever really exploded on someone. I don't know what it was about that time that made me explode. I think that was just, you know how like you just hold stuff in, and then at some point it's like it's not even conscious. It wasn't a conscious thing. It had just happened. Hmm. Felt nice to let that go. In that moment, it felt nice to put someone in their place. But then to be ridiculed for standing up for myself immediately after, like that really affected me. It was like everyone in that place, everyone in that place was some kind of malevolent or complacent. You know what I mean? Like they were either actively trying to get a rise out of you and make you feel like shit, or they were just not giving a damn about any of that. And to me, I don't know if one is just as bad as the other, but you know what I mean? Like it's just like how can you live with yourself? I don't think I could It just would not sit right in my soul to sit by and watch someone get publicly embarrassed and lampooned for things that they cannot control, like skin color, like the fact that you don't talk that much, like the fact that you're a little insecure, like just constantly people seeing that little bit of insecurity in me and just jumping on it the first chance they got. Hey, babe. I'm filming a video.
Huh?
I'm filming a video.
Oh. Well,
I'll be done in 5 minutes. It's always so weird to think about how I blame my mother the least, even though she's the person who raised me, to be that kind of person who just lets people walk all over her. But the way I see it, it was like, you know, my mother definitely held the nail over my forehead, but the world hammered that shit in as hard as it could. Really. Really. Like, it's just hard to accept. Like, and I think the reason that I haven't gotten over it was because I just literally cannot accept that it happened to me, you know? I don't think I have yet. I think I'm still disassociating because I don't see myself as that person. But I was that person. I did go through those things and I was that person. But I don't see myself as that person anymore. And it's like I want so badly to run away from that person that I end up almost blaming her for the things that happened. In that way of like not wanting to say that I was that person, I am kind of blaming myself. Because it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, how could I let that happen to me? Why did it have to be this way? Why couldn't I do this? Why? I just couldn't at the time. I just couldn't. I mean, there's no why about it. There's no reason to keep going over and over and over. It couldn't have been any other way. It just couldn't have. There's this other element of, we were kids. God damn it. Get over it. We were all just fucking dumbass fucking kids. All of us. There's not really anyone to blame. Like, I don't blame my mom because, like, she went through mad shit when she was a kid and she's psychologically fucked up. And I'm sure a lot of the people who did the things that they did to me were also psychologically fucked up to some degree or another, I don't really have a reason to be angry. I mean, I do, but I don't. You know what I mean? Like, everyone goes through shit, It's just that some people like me are better at... I feel like I and other empaths have a fuller picture. And it's like we're taking that picture into account. But the picture that of the world that, is fighting with how we want things to be for ourselves. There's like no, like as an empath, you want people to care about each other, you want people to care about you. But that's just not the way it is. Like, people are fucking shit. Like, if I'm being fucking honest, like, you know what I mean? Like, in that way of, like, they're not, most people are just not aware of the kind of stuff that we're aware of. And we shouldn't expect them to be. Like, they don't understand why, a lot of people don't even understand what the fuck they do shit for. They don't understand it. They're that stupid when it comes to, like, emotional understanding, you know? And the emotional understanding of themselves and others. They're that fucking stupid. They don't understand how they affect others. They don't. They just straight don't. And they don't care to know. They don't have the ability. They don't have the capacity to care about what other people are going through and empathize with them. They don't care. They just don't. And it's in that way, it's like a double-edged sword of being an empath, because it's like you start blaming people for blaming people. Man, I gotta heal. I gotta get over this shit, man. I really gotta get over this shit. It's been too long. I've just been suppressing all this stuff as much as I could because I didn't want to deal with it. I still don't want to deal with it. I still don't. It's like, every time I'm like, maybe I should forgive them. And then I say to myself, yeah, I forgive you, bitch. You know, it's that sort of thing. It's not real forgiveness. It's never, whenever I attempt to forgive, it's never real forgiveness. There's always this tone of contempt up under it. Because that's how I actually feel, because I do want revenge, still. I want revenge. I do. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but I know that I have to get it at some point in some way. And I don't think I can forgive them until I have gotten it, or until I feel like I've gotten it. I just want to rest easy. I wish I could just forget all that shit, because it I don't think it added anything to my life. No, that's a fucking lie. I guess I did. I learned a lot from that stuff, but some days I don't know if it was worth the lesson. Because, like, it seems like the lesson came out of having to be in those circumstances in the first place. Like, if I was never in those circumstances, I wouldn't have needed to learn the lesson. You know what I mean? Like, it's just... Yeah, relating to people is just so hard. Because it's like, you feel what they're feeling, but they don't have any idea about what's going on in your head at all. And your feelings on things tend to be so complicated that they don't, like, it's not like if they wanted to understand, they could understand, but they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that people are stupid. It's just that they really don't give a fuck about anything outside of themselves. Seriously. They don't. Like, yeah, most people are just selfish idiots. Like, how can I really be mad at them? And how can I be mad at myself for having gone through those things when from the very start I was in a bad position? Empath, raised by a narcissist. Of course I turned out the way that I did. Of course I did the things that I did. And it's not surprising, you know? I'm just a human like every other human. Of course, like, my very human behavior is predictable as fuck. Of course I did the things that I did. And then there's still another part of me that's like, why weren't you strong enough to supersede that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, better yet, why are you still fucking worried about it? Why don't you have the strength to move on? It's just difficult when you notice that because of how you grew up, you start to stagnate because of, psychological things. But then you look around and you start to notice that the very people who made your life a living hell, they're thriving. They have no problem living in this world at all. They get the things done that they need to get done. They're starting businesses. They're making connections. Thriving ass motherfuckers. And I bet they've completely forgotten about me. Don't give a fuck, right? But I'm still thinking about them and how they made my life a living hell. Because I don't know. It's like even more difficult when you see the same people who used to make fun of you for being dark-skinned. They're out here talking about body positivity. Dark skin is so beautiful. All shades are beautiful. They're talking all this nonsense about, all the leftist ideology that you can think of, all of it, And I guess you could see that as them, they've changed. But I see it as, okay, well, where was that attitude back then? Not like I'm waiting around for an apology specifically, but it just seems a little hypocritical to me. It just seems really fucking hypocritical. I've almost got this attitude of like, I know who you really are, you know what I mean? But I don't know who they are now. I don't know. They could be really good people, for all I know. Like actually changed people. I just feel so wronged sometimes. Like seriously, like wronged and taken advantage of when I look back on my past. I just get angry. But I know that I wouldn't say not right to feel that way, because I have a right to feel how I feel. But I guess in the end, it's just not helpful. And I just need to just acknowledge, I guess, in the end, the healthiest thing is to just completely acknowledge that was me, and that was them, and that we've all changed. That time just isn't anymore. It was, and now it isn't. there's also this other thing where it's like, it's almost like I'm projecting all of my insecurities onto these people who no longer exist for all intents and purposes. All the feelings that I feel, a lot of the feelings that I feel end up being projected towards those who are basically children, you know? Because we were children at the time. Just dumb kids. And granted, there were some adults in the mix who made it really, really bad for me too, but man, I don't know how I feel. I don't know how to feel. But it's like, it's so weird because it's like I almost hate the kids more than I hate the adults. You know? I don't know why. I think it's because, like, they say kids are mostly affected by their peers. Like, I think it really just came down to, like, the people who were supposed to identify with me the most identified with me the least. And I just couldn't handle that. And I still can't handle that. Seriously, I still don't. I still can't quite comprehend. I think maybe what I needed was to just say it. Because to be honest, like, I never told anyone about the shit that I went through as a kid. Like, I've told people I've been bullied, but I haven't told them in detail, and I still haven't really told you a lot of what happened. I think what it's really gonna take for me to move on is to just, like, actually acknowledge, like, get it off my chest, put it out into the world and say, this happened to me, this is who I was, and then maybe then I can, like, move the fuck on. There's such a shameful element to it. Like, wanting so much for it not to have happened that you want to trick yourself into believing that it didn't happen and, like, you can just disassociate from it. And so it's just like in that Kate Bush song where she's like, I'm my enemy, mowing me over and towing the light away. Somehow it just seems to fit with that old me trying to get back again. Man, that lyric hits so fucking hard. Because that's like that's what I do all the time. I look back on it, I'm like, you know what I mean? But damn, like, why do you have to be so mean? That's you. That's like, you really just don't have to be so mean. Like, you're being just as mean as they were to you. In trying to escape what they did to you, you end up replicating what the fuck they did to you to yourself. And it's so fucking stupid. There I go again. What a mindfuck. Like, trying to get out of CPTSD, trying to think your way out of trauma is the most painful experience. You have to re-traumatize yourself to progress from the traumatization. And that's why so many people go their whole lives without addressing any of their trauma. Because, one, they don't understand that they've been traumatized. And maybe, two, they don't want to they don't want to acknowledge that they've been traumatized. I'm just straight up ashamed of having I haven't gone through that. I just don't. I just don't like that that was me. I'm so proud of the person that I am now, and that I don't take shit from anybody anymore. I say what's on my mind. I acknowledge how people are feeling, and even after, you know, fully grasping how someone feels on something and how what I say might affect them, I say that shit anyway because I don't care. And having that feeling come over you that you weren't always this way, and that you've been a person who allowed themselves to be walked over constantly. It's just not fun. It's not fun to even acknowledge that person. I spent so much energy trying to get away from being that person, so to like acknowledge that I was that person is the hardest thing in the world to do. Like, I don't even want to look at her. I'm like, it's like, she was me, but she's not me, right? That person literally had no sense of self. That person was just someone who was just a a thing to be used by whoever came along, because I never said anything back. Ever. Anyone could ridicule me, and they would get away with it without any consequences. They treated me like garbage, and I let them, because I didn't know how else to interact with the world. It was no one's responsibility to help me with my self-esteem. I understand that, but the very least they could have done was not treat me like shit, you know? But the very least they could have done after all those years of treating me like shit was apologize. It would have been nice to just get one apology from one person. Nothing. It's because they don't give a fuck. You were just a thing to use. They used you and then they moved on. They treat you like shit and then they forget about it because you don't mean anything to them at all. You were just a thing. You were just a thing to get gratification out of. I know, like, a lot of people are getting really triggered right now because it sounds like rape, but you know what? For me, it was psychological rape. You know, when you're an empath, you get traumatized really fucking easily. I mean, all it really takes is just not having boundaries for you to be constantly traumatized. When your parent doesn't help you set up those boundaries, and then you go through a majority of your life not understanding what the fuck. I didn't even know what boundaries were until like 2 years ago. Boundaries? What the fuck is that? I was supposed to have those? Damn, okay. This video is a whole ass mess. Like, seriously, I'm gonna have a lot of trouble editing it because Rick's just like. And there's not really a start or end to any of this shit. It's like, it's circles. I go around in circles constantly when it comes to analyzing my past and trying to garner some type of truth nugget. Something that'll help me move on. I just remember people's essences so clearly and particularly that it almost feels like I do know them. Almost feels like I knew them better than they knew themselves. And then that way, I think that's why I'm always like, no way they're a good person now. You know what I mean? Like, no one changes that much. And then that makes it easier to project all of my shit onto them. But like, once again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who they are now. I sincerely don't have a clue. And it's just like they don't have a clue of who I am anymore, you know? I'm not anywhere near the person I was when I was a child. Babe, could you turn the TV down? Even to this day, I have these weird voices in my head that are like projective. They are my own insecurities that I say other people are saying to me in my head. Like right now, I'm thinking, oh, she's just having a pity party. And I mean, that's true, but I'm saying my feelings. I'm trying to move on. I'm just trying to externalize what is on the inside, and I'm constantly being bullied from the inside, even. You don't get to tell me how to feel. You don't get to tell me which feelings are valid. They are all valid. You little voice in my head, you don't get to tell me. I wish some of these voices would just shut the fuck up. They went away for a little while. For a good little while, like a week. They just completely went away. Yeah, it was nice while it lasted. But they're back. At least for today. Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to the fact that I was internalizing, not knowing I was an empath and not having any boundaries of any type. I was internalizing people's feelings. People were feeling feelings about themselves. People in general were projecting their own feelings about themselves onto me because in that way of being an empath that doesn't know she's an empath, I was like a blank slate for anyone to project onto. So I would internalize that as though I was feeling that about myself. You know? It's just like, it's such a weird thing. It's kind of extremely fucked. And just figuring that out, takes a lot of fucking emotional work. But once you do that emotional work, you become empowered because, like, and it's like, I used to look back on that shit and be like, I don't want to think about it. Like, I hate that version of myself. And now I don't, because, like, I understand. I understand it. I get it. Like, I don't weep for younger me. I don't feel bad for younger me. But I don't necessarily look at her and think, ugh, you know? I just think she was doing what she needed to do at the time. At the time, that's what she felt like she needed to do in order to survive. She didn't understand what was happening to her. She didn't understand the boundaries of the world. She didn't understand how to socialize. There's just so many things that were not taught to me. And so I can't blame myself for the way that I acted growing up. And doing that is just another level of insecurity. It's like, it's hard to move on. I know it's really hard to move on from the person that you used to be. But you gotta do it. You gotta do it. In order to move on, you have to actually let go of the things that you used to feel. Like, and not take it personally. And I think for a long time after all of that stuff, happened in that way, because I couldn't understand why things had to be that way, or
because I wasn't willing to accept those things that happened to me, and therefore I was a certain way. There's a certain level of, because you can't accept it, you can't let it go, and you are kind of forced in that way to take it personally, not only personally from the emotions that people were projecting onto you, but from you, not understanding that you were internalizing other people's emotions and cycling them around inside of you for a decent period of time. You know what I mean? You gotta let all that shit go. The build up, and then the fall, and the looking back on it and letting it go. To a lot of people, this probably don't make no fucking sense, probably sounds like fucking gibberish, but you empaths know what the hell I'm talking about. You know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. I need y'all to understand. Stop internalizing people's feelings. Stop internalizing people's feelings. Make an effort to make that distinction between what you're feeling and what other people are feeling, because if you don't, you're gonna fuck yourself over. What's really funny is that, like, a young empath, they keep getting tripped up because they're not taking the things their body does seriously. They think, oh, I'm just crazy. Oh, this, that, you got every excuse in the book for what you think is going on. What it really comes down to is that you're just not taking the things that your body does seriously. You're denying your abilities. And denying your abilities in general isn't the worst thing, but when you're an empath, it's actually dangerous. It's something akin to trying to use a double-edged sword as a regular sword. Kind of funny to think about, really. And I guess, like, what it really comes down to is that I was quite literally just mad that I could feel their feelings. I was mad at my ability. I think that's why I just didn't want to accept that I had it. I was angry that I could feel their awful feelings toward themselves and me, to the point where I could, like, pinpoint exactly what insecurity all of that was coming out of. And instead of just fully acknowledging what the fuck was happening, I denied myself, I denied my ability because I didn't understand that even was a thing. And I internalized the feelings as my own. All this anger, jealousy, malice that I'm harboring within myself, to finally get to that conclusion where all of this stuff, all of these bad, horrible, terrible feelings that I'm harboring within my body, they were never mine. They were never mine. And once you just fully realize that, it's like a weight is lifted off of you. Like, some of them are yours, but once you distinguish yours from theirs and get theirs off of you, it's such a freeing feeling. It's like it feels like being free. And that's what you got to learn to be. You got to learn to be free. You can't be suppressed. You can't allow how other people feel to suppress how you feel. Because that's what you do when you're allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by everybody else's feelings. You automatically suppress your own. Automatically. And it's not fun. It's not fun. You got to learn to use this to your benefit. If you don't learn to use your empathic abilities for your benefit, it's automatically going to work against you. Fully accept your weapon. Only then can you learn to wield it, young grasshopper.